The mirror was old, not antique. Old, not the kind you'd find in a European estate with stories carved into its gilded frame, just old, worn. The silver backing had begun to separate in the corners, creating dark spots that looked like bruises on glass. It hung in the powder room of a Beverly Hills mansion that didn't belong to her, at a party she didn't want to attend, reflecting a woman she no longer knew. Marilyn stood 3 feet away from her own reflection, champagne glass dangling from fingers that had forgotten how to hold things properly. The liquid inside had gone flat an hour ago, maybe 2. Time had become elastic tonight, stretching and compressing in ways that made her dizzy. Outside the powder room door, music pulsed through the walls, something jazzy and bright, the kind of song that made people want to dance close to strangers. Laughter erupted in waves, cresting and falling like the ocean she could hear in the distance. Malibu wasn't far from here. She could drive there if she wanted. She could drive anywhere, but she couldn't look away from the mirror. The woman staring back had Marilyn's face, same platinum hair, curled and pinned with precision, that had taken someone else's hands an hour to achieve. Same red lips, painted into that signature smile that photographers paid thousands to capture. Same beauty mark, that perfectly placed dot of dark pigment that magazines called iconic. But the eyes, God, the eyes were all wrong. They belonged to someone else, someone tired, someone who had been running for so long she'd forgotten what she was running toward, someone who wore Marilyn Monroe like a costume that was starting to fray at the seams. The bathroom light flickered. Old wiring in an old house owned by old money, and for just a second, the woman in the mirror smiled without Marilyn smiling first. That's when she knew something had broken. 6 hours earlier, the day had started the way every day started, with the construction of a person who didn't exist. Marilyn's bedroom was a sanctuary of soft things, cream-colored silk sheets, pillows stuffed with down feathers, curtains that filtered the Los Angeles sun into something gentler. She decorated it herself, choosing every lamp, every piece of art, every throw blanket with the kind of care people usually reserved for children's nurseries. This room was supposed to feel safe, supposed to feel like home. It never did. She woke at 5:47 a.m. without an alarm, the way soldiers wake in war zones, sensing danger before consciousness fully returns. The ceiling fan turned lazy circles above her, and she watched it for 11 minutes before remembering she had to become someone today. The shower ran hot enough to hurt. She liked it that way. Liked the way it made her skin pink and tender, proof that she could still feel things. The steam filled the bathroom until the mirrors fogged over completely, erasing her reflection, and she was grateful for the temporary blindness. In the steam, she could be anyone, could be no one, but the steam always cleared. Her morning routine was a ritual of transformation that would have impressed method actors. Foundation applied in layers, building a new surface over the old one. Powder to set it, blush to create warmth where she felt none, eyebrows penciled into perfect arches that made her look perpetually surprised by the world's goodness, eyeliner that turned her eyes into something larger than life, larger than the small scared thing they actually were. The lipstick came last. She had 17 shades of red, each one slightly different, each one chosen for specific occasions. Today's party required confidence, a blue-toned red that made her teeth look whiter, her smile more commanding. She applied it with a brush, not the tube, building the color until her lips looked like they belonged on a movie screen, not a human face. When she was finished, she studied her work in the vanity mirror. Perfect, and completely, utterly wrong. Marilyn Monroe stared back at her, camera ready, flawless, the fantasy made flesh. But somewhere behind those painted eyes, Norma Jeane was screaming, had been screaming for so long that the sound had become white noise, easy to ignore, easier to bury under layers of foundation and powder and performance. Today though, the screaming was getting louder. The invitation had arrived 3 weeks ago on cream-colored cardstock with embossed lettering that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. An evening of celebration at the Hartwell estate in Beverly Hills. Black tie, cocktails at 7. An elite gathering of Hollywood's most influential people. The kind of party where careers were made and broken over canapes and champagne. She didn't want to go, but Marilyn Monroe never turned down invitations to parties like this. Marilyn Monroe loved parties, loved attention, loved being the brightest star in any constellation. So she'd RSVP'd yes through her assistant, had a dress made for the occasion, red silk that clung to her curves like a second skin, and prepared to play the role she'd been cast in somewhere around 1952 and had never been allowed to leave. The drive to Beverly Hills took 40 minutes through Los Angeles traffic that shimmered with heat, even as the sun set. Her driver, Marcus, made small talk that she responded to automatically, the way you respond when someone asks how are you, and you say fine, even though you haven't been fine in years. The Hartwell estate sprawled across 3 acres of manicured lawn and architectural ambition. The house itself was a Spanish colonial revival, all white stucco and red tile, and arched doorways that led to rooms filled with people who looked but never really saw. She arrived at 7:23 p.m., late enough to make an entrance, early enough to not seem difficult. The moment she stepped out of the car, she felt it, the weight of performance settling onto her shoulders like a fur coat in summer. Heavy, suffocating, necessary, cameras flashed. Not paparazzi. Those vultures weren't invited inside the gates, but society photographers hired to document who attended, who wore what, who stood next to whom in the careful geometry of status and influence. She smiled. The smile, the one that launched 1,000 ships and sold 1,000,000 magazines. Marilyn, over here. Miss Monroe, who are you wearing? Marilyn, give us the pose. She gave them the pose. Hip cocked, shoulders back, head tilted just slightly so the light caught her face at the most flattering angle. She'd done this 10,000 times, could do it in her sleep, could do it while dying inside, which she suspected she might be. Inside, the party was already in full swing. The entry hall alone was larger than her first apartment, with marble floors that clicked under heels like a countdown to something inevitable. Crystal chandeliers caught the light and threw it around the room in prismatic fragments. Everywhere, beautiful people in beautiful clothes held beautiful glasses filled with beautiful poison, smiling their beautiful smiles that meant absolutely nothing. She knew most of them, producers who'd cast her in roles that reduced her to a collection of measurements and breathy dialogue, directors who'd told her to be sexy without ever asking what that word meant to her, actors who saw her as competition or conquest, never colleague, socialites who befriended her when it was fashionable and ignored her when it wasn't, and they all wanted a piece of her tonight. Marilyn, darling. Marilyn, you look absolutely divine. Marilyn, have you met? Names and faces blurred together in a kaleidoscope of false intimacy. She smiled and nodded and laughed at jokes that weren't funny and complimented dresses she thought were hideous and played the game because the game was all she knew. 2 hours in, she excused herself to find the powder room. That's when she found the mirror that would change everything. The powder room was at the end of a long hallway on the second floor, far from the party's epicenter. She'd asked a server for directions, needing a moment away from the performance, from the lights, from the constant observation that made her feel like a specimen in a jar. The hallway was dimly lit, lined with portraits of people who'd probably been dead for decades, their painted eyes following her as she walked. Her heels sank into carpet so plush it felt like walking on clouds, or drowning slowly, she couldn't tell which. The powder room door was slightly ajar, revealing a sliver of yellow light. She pushed it open. The space was smaller than she expected, more intimate. Wallpaper in a faded floral pattern that had probably been fashionable in the 1940s. A pedestal sink with brass fixtures gone slightly green with age. A small window that looked out onto the estate's back garden, where shadows pooled between carefully trimmed hedges, and the mirror. It hung above the sink, catching her reflection before she was ready to see it. That's when she noticed the woman in the mirror wasn't smiling. Marilyn had been smiling for 2 hours straight, her facial muscles locked into the expression like a death mask. But the woman in the mirror stood with her lips pressed into a thin, hard line, eyes dark with something that looked like accusation. She blinked, the reflection blinked, she smiled wider, the reflection didn't. Her heart began to hammer against her ribs, a bird trying to break free from a cage it had lived in too long. Stop it, she whispered to the mirror, to herself, to whatever was happening. The reflection's lips moved, forming words Marilyn hadn't spoken. I'm so tired. The champagne glass slipped from her fingers, hitting the tile floor with a crystalline crash that should have brought someone running. But the party was far away, and the music was loud, and no one was coming to save her from herself. She gripped the edge of the sink, porcelain cold under her palms, and forced herself to look, really look. The woman in the mirror was a stranger. Not because she looked different. Every feature was exactly where it should be. Every line and curve and carefully constructed detail in perfect alignment, but because she didn't recognize the person behind the features, didn't know her, had maybe never known her. Who are you? Marilyn asked the reflection. The reflection asked back, who are you? And neither of them had an answer. She didn't know how long she stood there, locked in a staring contest with her own face. Time had become meaningless, measured only in heartbeats and shallow breaths, and the growing horror of disconnection. Somewhere in the house, music swelled into something melancholy, a violin that sounded like weeping, a piano that cascaded through minor keys like falling downstairs. The party had shifted into its later phase, the part where people got philosophical and sad, where drinks got stronger and truths got told. Marilyn's reflection began to change. Not physically, the features remained the same, but something in the expression shifted, hardened, became more real than the carefully constructed facade she'd been wearing all night. The reflection's eyes narrowed. You don't even remember my name. What? Marilyn's voice cracked. Say it, the reflection demanded. Say my real name. Marilyn Monroe. The reflection laughed, sharp and bitter. That's what they call you. That's what you call yourself. But it's not your name. You had a name before they took it, before you gave it away. Norma Jeane. The name rose in her mind like a body floating to the surface of dark water, something drowned that refused to stay down. I remember, Marilyn whispered. Do you? The reflection leaned closer, and impossibly, Marilyn could feel breath on her face even though she was breathing, even though they were the same person, even though none of this made sense. Remember being her, remember what she wanted, what she dreamed about when she was a little girl, before the world told her she wasn't enough. Tears built behind Marilyn's eyes, hot and insistent. She couldn't cry, couldn't afford to cry. Mascara would run, foundation would streak, and she'd have to go back to the party looking broken, and Marilyn Monroe never looked broken. But Norma Jeane had always been broken. She wanted to be loved, Marilyn said, the words catching in her throat. She wanted to matter. She wanted to be seen. And are you? The reflection asked. Are you loved? Do you matter? Does anyone see you, or do they just see the picture they've made of you? The question hit like a physical blow. All those men who'd told her they loved her while looking at her body. All those photographers who'd captured her image while ignoring her words. All those directors who'd praised her beauty while dismissing her intelligence. All those parties where everyone wanted Marilyn Monroe in attendance, but no one actually wanted to know the woman wearing her face. No, she whispered. They don't see me. Then who are you performing for? The question hung in the air between them, between Marilyn and her reflection, between who she'd become and who she'd been. And she didn't have an answer. A knock on the door shattered the moment. Miss Monroe, are you all right in there? A woman's voice, concerned but distant. One of the servers, probably, or maybe a guest who'd noticed her absence. Marilyn stared at her reflection. The stranger stared back. Miss Monroe, I'm fine, she called out, her voice automatically shifting into that breathy register everyone expected, that little girl lost quality that made men want to protect her, and women want to mother her, and nobody want to take her seriously. Just freshening up. I'll be out in a moment. Footsteps retreated down the hallway. She was alone again. With herself. With the truth. The reflection's expression had softened. You're allowed to stop, you know. Stop what? This. The reflection gestured at the painted face, the styled hair, the whole carefully constructed illusion. You can stop being what they want and start being what you are. I don't know what I am anymore. Then maybe it's time to find out. Marilyn's hands moved without her conscious permission, reaching for the small clutch purse she'd set on the counter. Inside, among the lipstick and compact and breath mints, was a handkerchief. White cotton with her initials embroidered in pale pink thread. She pulled it out, ran it under cold water from the tap, and brought it to her face. The makeup came off in streaks of beige and red and black, colors that had no business being on human skin. She scrubbed harder, watching years of performance dissolve into wet fabric, watching Marilyn Monroe disappear one swipe at a time. The reflection watched, silent now, as a different face emerged, smaller, younger, more fragile, without its armor. Norma Jeane. She looked in the mirror and saw herself for the first time in years, and she looked so tired. The woman staring back had freckles, 3 of them across her nose, usually hidden under foundation, had dark circles under her eyes from sleeping pills that never quite worked, had a small scar on her chin from a childhood accident she'd almost forgotten, had crow's feet starting at the corners of her eyes from smiling even when she wanted to scream. She looked human, she looked real, she looked like someone who'd been fighting for a very long time and wasn't sure she wanted to keep fighting. Hi, she whispered to her reflection, to herself. I'm Norma Jeane. The reflection, her true reflection now, no longer a stranger, smiled back. Not Marilyn's smile, smaller, sadder, but real. Hi, she whispered back. I've missed you. Marilyn. No. Norma Jeane sank onto the closed toilet lid, her red silk dress pooling around her like spilled wine, and let herself fall apart. The tears came in waves, each one carrying years of swallowed words and buried feelings and performances given for audiences who didn't deserve them. She cried for the little girl who'd bounced between foster homes, wondering why nobody wanted to keep her. For the teenager who'd married too young to escape loneliness, only to find loneliness waiting in the marriage bed. For the young woman who'd posed for calendar photographs because she needed rent money and didn't understand yet what those photographs would cost her. She cried for every time someone had touched her without permission, and she'd smiled anyway because that's what you did when you were trying to survive in a world built by men for men. She cried for every script that reduced her to a fantasy, every director who told her to think less and look pretty, every interview where journalists asked about her measurements instead of her dreams. She cried for the studio executives who owned her contract like slave papers, who loaned her out to other studios like property, who threatened her career every time she dared to ask for respect. She cried for the lovers who'd promised to see her soul and only ever looked at her body. She cried for the friends who'd befriended Marilyn Monroe and abandoned Norma Jeane the moment the cameras stopped rolling. She cried until her throat was raw and her eyes were swollen and mascara ran in black rivers down her face, ruining what was left of the makeup. And she didn't care, couldn't care, wouldn't care anymore. Somewhere in the house the party continued. Music and laughter and the brittle sound of glass against glass as people toasted to things that didn't matter. They would notice her absence eventually, would wonder where Hollywood's favorite blonde had gone, would gossip about it tomorrow over lunch at the Brown Derby or drinks at the Chateau Marmont. Let them wonder, let them gossip. For the first time in 7 years, Norma Jeane didn't care what they thought. She looked up at the mirror through blurred vision, through tears that felt like baptism, and saw herself, truly saw herself as she actually was. Not perfect, not a fantasy. Not a poster on a million teenage boys' bedroom walls, just a woman, tired, scared, broken in places that might never fully heal, but real, so heartbreakingly, devastatingly real. I'm sorry, she told her reflection. told herself. I'm so sorry I forgot you. I'm sorry I buried you under all this. She gestured at her ruined makeup, her elaborate hair, her expensive dress. I'm sorry I let them convince me you weren't enough. The reflection, her true face, bare and vulnerable, looked back with understanding. You did what you had to do to survive, Norma Jeane told herself. But maybe it's time to start living. She didn't return to the party. Instead, she did something Marilyn Monroe would never do. She left through the back door. The estate's garden was vast and dark, lit only by strategically placed lights that created pools of illumination among the shadows. She kicked off her heels, expensive red stilettos that matched her dress and murdered her feet, and walked barefoot across grass still warm from the day's sun. The night air was cooler than the house, carrying the scent of jasmine and chlorine from the pool she could hear but couldn't see. Above, the Los Angeles sky tried valiantly to show stars through the city's light pollution, managing only the brightest few. She found a stone bench hidden behind a wall of bougainvillea, its purple flowers ghost pale in the darkness, sat down, let herself just exist for a moment without performance, without pretense, without the crushing weight of being someone she wasn't. Her purse, forgotten in the powder room, contained her car keys. Her driver was probably still waiting in the circular driveway with the other drivers, smoking cigarettes and trading stories about the famous people they ferried around like cargo. She should go find him, should go home, should do something, but she didn't want to do anything, except sit here in the dark and remember what it felt like to be herself. A cigarette would be nice. She'd quit smoking publicly. Marilyn Monroe didn't smoke, bad for the image, but Norma Jeane had always loved the ritual of it. The small rebellion of fire and nicotine, the way smoke could fill spaces where words couldn't reach. I thought I'd find you here. She turned, heart jumping, expecting someone from the party, but it was just Marcus, her driver, holding her heels in one hand and her purse in the other. The server told me you'd left through the garden, he said, his voice gentle in the way of people who'd witnessed breakdowns before and knew not to make a fuss. Thought you might need these. She took the purse, but left the shoes on the bench. Thank you. Marcus was older, 60-something, with kind eyes and a military past he rarely talked about. He'd been driving her for 6 months, and had never once asked for an autograph, or treated her like anything other than a person who needed to get from point A to point B. Rough night? He asked. She laughed, the sound watery and broken. Something like that. Want to talk about it? Would you think less of me, she asked, if I told you I didn't know who I was anymore? Marcus considered this, his face thoughtful in the dim light. I'd think you were human. Most people don't have the courage to admit that. They sat in companionable silence for a moment, the party's music a distant murmur, the city's hum a constant undertone. Ready to go home? Marcus finally asked. Norma Jeane nodded. Yes, I think I am. The drive back to her house took longer than the drive there. Marcus took surface streets instead of the highway, somehow sensing she needed the extra time, the gentle transition between who she'd been tonight and who she'd be tomorrow. She watched Los Angeles slide by outside the window, a city of dreams and delusions, where everyone was running from something, or chasing something, or pretending they weren't doing both at once. Neon signs advertised movies and motor lodges, and a better life just around the corner, if you bought the right products, wore the right clothes, became the right person. She'd spent so long trying to become the right person, maybe it was time to just be a person. When they pulled into her driveway, Marcus got out to open her door. She emerged barefoot, dress wrinkled, makeup completely destroyed, hair falling out of its careful pins. Miss Monroe, he started. Norma Jeane, she corrected softly. My name is Norma Jeane. Something shifted in Marcus's expression. Recognition, understanding. Have a good night, Norma Jeane. You too, Marcus. Inside her house, she went straight to the bedroom, to the vanity mirror, where Marilyn Monroe was born every morning, sat down in front of it, looked at her reflection. The stranger was gone. In her place sat a woman with a bare, blotchy face and sad eyes and hair that desperately needed brushing. A woman who looked exhausted and fragile and utterly, completely real. Norma Jeane smiled at her reflection. Her reflection smiled back. Not the practiced, perfect curve of Marilyn Monroe's famous smile. Something smaller, more tentative, but genuine in a way that felt like coming home after years of being lost. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. Didn't know if she could maintain this newfound recognition of self in a world that wanted her to be a fantasy. Didn't know if the industry that had made her would allow her to be human. But tonight, in the quiet sanctuary of her bedroom, with the city's lights twinkling through her curtains and her face finally bare of illusion, Norma Jeane allowed herself to exist, just be. And in the mirror, the woman she'd forgotten looked back with something that almost resembled peace. Tomorrow, she might have to put Marilyn back on, might have to paint the face and style the hair and perform the role that paid her bills and kept her relevant. The world wasn't ready for Norma Jeane, might never be ready, but tonight, she'd remember the girl who'd wanted to be loved for who she was, not what she looked like. Remember the woman who'd been buried under layers of performance and expectation. Remember that underneath Marilyn Monroe, underneath all the makeup and glamour and carefully constructed illusion, there was a real person who deserved to be seen. She reached for her makeup remover and spent the next 20 minutes carefully, methodically removing every last trace of tonight's performance. Cleaned her face until her skin felt raw and new. brushed out her hair until the curls fell into something softer, less structured, changed into pajamas, old, worn cotton, nothing glamorous, and washed her face one more time, just to be sure. When she finally climbed into bed, she left the vanity light on. In its glow, she could see her reflection across the room, could see Norma Jeane lying in bed, looking small and human and tired, could see herself, and for the first time in 7 years, the woman looking back from the mirror wasn't a stranger, she was just someone who'd been lost for a long time, and had finally found her way home.